You're listening to the Stories of Subi podcast, which has been produced for the Subi East project. The Stories of Subi are brought to you by DevelopmentWA in collaboration with Creating Communities Australia. The Subi East area has a rich history, and we're bringing you conversations with the people who can provide interesting perspectives on the great memories, history, and changes they've seen. Peter Featherby began his footy career at the Subi Football Club before joining the VFL, then coming back to Subi once more, playing premierships in both ends of his career. Peter has been inducted into the WAFL Hall of Fame, and he was also named as Subiaco's legend in 2007.
Peter, your father and your son played at Subi Oval at pretty high levels. Is footy in your blood?
I guess so. There's a long history of it. My father played forever for Wembley Amateurs, and that's where I started, obviously, and then progressed to Subiaco for a long time, probably too long, my body's saying, but loved every minute of it. And then my son went there, both sons went there, and Jason, the eldest son, played a few games for Subi before giving it up, basically, to get a job that paid him enough to survive.
Did you really encourage your sons to play?
Not overly, but they just loved the game, and it was just one of the sports they played growing up, and they still love it. So I guess it is in the blood.
Was that your experience as well? You just watched your dad play and
Yeah.
then that's what you did?
I think back then it was just a natural progression. The choice wasn't around. It was football in the winter and cricket in the summer, so you just grew up with it.
Why did you decide, though, to take it really seriously?
I don't know. I just don't think it was something you decide. I think it's just something back then you fell into it because it wasn't a career path because there was basically no money involved. It was just you progressed from one level to the next. What
about Subiaco is important to you, the Subi Football Club?
I guess the whole thing. Like when I went there was the old wooden grandstands, which I still love. I just look at the old photos and love it, but they're all gone. And no, I just loved the place. Yeah, I thought it was great. If you asked anyone that played for any other club as well as Subi, it was a great place to play football. And you knew if you went to play there, even opposition clubs, once they played there, they were going to play final. So I think they loved it. I loved it. I thought the ground was great. And obviously you got bigger crowds once footy final times came, and that's part of the reason you play. So it was just the history of the place where all big games were played there, all finals were played there, interstate games were played there, first State of Origin game was played there, which was fantastic. I think it was just the history of the whole place. And the other clubs obviously had their own club history, but this had the whole league's history there.
Do you have any memorable moments playing at Subi Oval that stick with you?
Oh, lots. I guess there's probably the 73 premiership side, when that was my first full year at Subi. And then 1986 was the next premiership side, which was my last full year at Subi. So there was a big gap between, but both memorable. First interstate game I played at Subi. The first ever State of Origin game I played was at Subiaco. So lots and lots of great memories there for me.
You had some highs and lows in your career, getting injured. Can you tell me a bit about what it's like to ride that wave?
Yeah, I guess it was more patience. I was pretty lucky, didn't have too many serious things go wrong, but I think you just ride it out. Your patience, the club was very supportive, teammates are supportive. It's just one of those things that I was lucky that I didn't suffer anything drastically long term.
What are some of the best players that you've seen play at Subi Oval?
Just even in my own club, there was, back in 73, there was Fitzpatrick and Dennis Blair, Colin Williams, Keith Watt, Ross Smith. The names never ending. In 86, there was obviously a lot more. Dwayne Lamb, Laurie Keane, too many to mention really, and even just opposition sides, like they all had their good players, so too many.
Can you give me a sense of the atmosphere or the culture around WA football in the 70s?
Totally different than now. I guess back then, obviously it was a little bit more uncomfortable for the spectators to go and watch, because I can remember the outer at Subiaco was basically a mud heap in the middle of winter, so people, and basically standing room only. The people so close, you could hear the crowd, obviously, where now it's just all seating and it's been corporatised a lot, I think. But probably for me, I enjoyed the 70s probably more than I would enjoy going to the footy now. You know, but it was traditional football, where now you're sort of sitting there in a suit and tie and drinking wine and...
It's professionalised.
Yeah,
right?
a lot. Where for me growing up, when I grew up, it was just fun. That's just an important, long part of my life, I guess. Other things happen, you know, you kids, you get married, you move away, you work, you do all sorts of things, but I love my time there. I just love playing footy, and loved playing footy at Subi Oval from the very first time I played there. So for me, it's easy. I just love being there. It was part of my life, a big part of my life. I love the messing around. I love going to training. Didn't like training, but I loved going to training. There was just 30 or 40 guys back then having a good time, I think. I just loved it.
So if you were playing at a really high level, but you weren't making any money, like how do you balance that?
I had a job, so we just worked. Most of us worked full time, and footy was a outlet, I guess. My grandson and son that played for Subi are into it. Yeah, it's a bit different than you actually playing, because I think you try and play it yourself when you're probably better off not watching, I think, in some instances.
What, you just want to control what he's doing?
Yeah, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, but no, you can't. You just got to butt out and let them run their own race. If I could have mentally and physically done it for longer, I would have. So it was probably a mental thing rather than a physical thing when I gave it up. I probably just had enough for a while. It would have been good to take a year off and then come back, but you're too old, so you've run your race. But I loved playing, and obviously loved winning. That was part of it. But if you were in a situation where you could play but lose anyway, well, I still would have played. I love playing it more than watching it, I guess.
Do you have any particular aspirations for the redevelopment?
The gates have been kept.
Yeah.
Which is great. I don't know, as long as I preserve the history of the place somehow. Photographic would be good somehow that you could go. Just that there's been a lot of people there over a long period of time. Would be nice to preserve it in some way that recognised what they did for the game, I guess, and I guess for people, because it was an outlet for them on a Saturday afternoon.
Thanks for listening to the Stories of Subi podcast. It was created by Creating Communities Australia for DevelopmentWA.